Welcome back to Beyond the Silence Whispers Across America. I'm Sammy, and tonight we are traveling to the Ozark Mountains, to the small tight-knit community of Huntsville, Arkansas, in a region known for its rugged beauty, ancient limestone bluffs, and deeply isolated landscapes. The disappearance of a well-known resident can send shockwaves through the hills that last for generations. We are looking into the 1999 disappearance of Walter Fowler, a man whose life was deeply rooted in the soil of Madison County, yet who seemed to vanish into thin air on a cold December morning. This is a story of a veteran, a father and a friend whose absence created a void that neither time nor the changing seasons have been able to fill. The year was 1999. Walter Fowler was 63 years old, a man whose presence was a stable, comforting staple in Huntsville. He was a veteran who had served his country with honor, and a man who valued the quiet, steady rhythm of rural life. The kind of life where you know the history of every fence post and every neighbor's truck. Walter was known for his ironclad routine. He was a regular at the local diners for morning coffee, a familiar face at the post office, and a man who prided himself on his rugged self-sufficiency. At 63, he was enjoying a well-earned retirement, spending his time tending to his property and staying deeply connected with his family and the small circle of neighbors who formed his social world. Walter was a man of his word and a man of habit. He wasn't the type to suddenly depart without notice. And he certainly wasn't the type to leave his home unsecured and his beloved dog unattended, which made his sudden absence on a Friday in early December an immediate, gut-wrenching cause for alarm among those who knew his movements best. The mystery began on the morning of December 3rd, 1999. Walter had been seen in town earlier that morning, running errands, picking up mail, and chatting with acquaintances. He appeared to be in good spirits, showing no signs of distress or indicating that anything unusual was weighing on his mind. He eventually headed back toward his home, located on a somewhat secluded, tree-lined stretch of road outside of town. When a neighbor stopped by his house later that afternoon for a casual visit, they found the front door unlocked and Walter's dog inside, pacing and anxious, but Walter himself was nowhere to be found. Even more unsettling was the fact that his truck was still parked in its usual spot in the driveway, and his keys, wallet, and eyeglasses, essential items he never left home without, were sitting undisturbed on the kitchen table. In a rural community where people look out for one another and doors are rarely locked, the sight of an empty house with a waiting dog and abandoned personal essentials was a chilling tableau. It was as if time had simply stopped for Walter, suggesting he hadn't left his property on his own accord. The initial search was massive and immediate, reflecting the high regard and affection in which Walter was held by the community. Local law enforcement, volunteer fire departments, and hundreds of residents from across Madison County mobilized to comb through the dense oak and hickory woods and the steep, treacherous ravines surrounding his property. They utilized tracking dogs, heat-seeking infrared equipment, and low-flying aircraft to scan the canopy. But the rugged, unforgiving terrain of the Ozarks proved to be a formidable adversary. Despite the thousands of grueling man-hours spent meticulously searching every hidden cave, muddy creek bed, and shadowed hollow in the vicinity, not a single shred of evidence was found. No torn clothing, no stray footprints, and no physical sign of a struggle. It was a baffling disappearance that defied logic. It was as if Walter Fowler had simply stepped off the face of the earth the very moment he crossed his own threshold. The investigation into Walter's disappearance was profoundly complicated by the absolute lack of a clear motive. There was no evidence of a robbery. His home was tidy, his bed was made, and nothing of value appeared to be missing from the residence. There were no known threats against his life, no simmering feuds, and his financial records showed no unusual activity that would suggest a planned departure or a life under pressure. This vacuum of evidence led investigators to explore several diverging theories. Did he suffer a sudden, catastrophic medical emergency, like a stroke, and wander into the vast woods in a state of terminal confusion? Was he the victim of a random, violent encounter with someone passing through the rural area? Or was there something more sinister and calculated at play? Someone local, who knew his daily routine perfectly and waited for that specific, quiet moment of vulnerability? The enduring ambiguity of the case created a lingering climate of suspicion and fear in Huntsville. The once comforting isolation of the hills began to feel claustrophobic, as neighbors began to look at one another with newfound doubt, wondering if a predator was hiding in plain sight in their own backyard. As the weeks stretched into months, and those months bled into 25 years, the case began to grow cold. The Madison County Sheriff's Office has revisited the file periodically, re-interviewing aging witnesses and checking new leads, but the trail always leads back to the same silent, unyielding woods. In the decades since he vanished, advances in forensic technology have been applied to what little evidence existed, but without a body or a definitive crime scene, there is very little for modern science to latch on to. The enduring mystery of Walter Fowler is a heavy, living burden for his children, who have spent more than 2 decades searching for the truth. They refuse to let his memory fade into the landscape and continue to hope that one day the Ozark Hills will finally give up the secrets they've kept since that December morning. The case of Walter Fowler serves as a sobering, haunting reminder of how quickly a life can be interrupted and how a person can be lost in the very landscape they called home. His house has long since changed hands, and the town of Huntsville has grown and modernized. But for those who still remember the veteran with the steady gaze and the friendly nod, the mystery of December 3rd, 1999, remains an open wound. The silence of the hills is more than just a lack of sound. It is a haunting echo of a man who went home, but never truly arrived. I'm Sammy, and I'll keep telling these stories because someone out there knows something. And for people like Walter Fowler, silence should never be the end. The truth remains just out of reach, and the shadows around this case only grow deeper as the years pass. Someone out there knows more than they've said. And one small, forgotten detail could finally crack everything wide open. What do you think is still hiding beneath the surface of these hills? Drop your theories. Even the smallest clue can spark a breakthrough for a family still waiting for answers. For more chilling mysteries and untold stories, tune in to Beyond the Silence. Whispers across America on all major podcast platforms, or find us on Facebook. Until next time, listen closely, trust your instincts, and stay safe.